Good to see you, Coleman.
Yeah, awesome.
You too.
We're gonna let everyone log in here. We'll give them a little time and then we'll get started.
Just go ahead. I'm going to, I didn't have a chance to prepare anything. Let's go, Troy.
Living the dream, you know how it is.
I just started something new yesterday.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, U.S. Department of Labor.
Oh, fun. Fun. You still making it down my neck of the woods?
I will see.
Yeah,
We'll see what they have me going.
yeah.
That's exciting, Coleman.
Yeah, that's awesome.
All right, people are getting signed on. We've got a great crowd today.
Awesome.
You got to tip the scales there, Troy, with the participation.
I was gonna ask, well, everyone's getting logged in still. Troy, do you want me to set up a poll and we can just kind of see what version everyone's at?
Oh yeah,
what your audience looks
that'd
like?
be kind of good. Yeah.
When you get started or when I finish introducing stuff, I'll get it up there.
Get it started. Yeah, I have a slide for versions and such, so that'll be good.
Okay, well, I think that's pretty much everyone for now. I'm going to go ahead and get started. All right, welcome everyone. I'm so glad you could join us today for Troy Ligon's webinar, 223C or not 23C, that is the question. Today's presentation is hosted by Viscosity North America and the New York Oracle User Group. Co-hosting with me today is the VP of NYOUG, Coleman Leveter, in his fabulous hat. And I think Troy's maybe got a matching Hawaiian shirt on today, does he? They are the OG IOUGers, I think. So real quick, just want to tell everybody, yes, this is a live webinar. It is being recorded. You'll even get to hear us talking right now like this. So you might want to skip the first couple of seconds, but it will be available to you later today or tomorrow via NYOUG or AuraPub. AuraPub.com. Sorry, I think you took my screen share.
Nope, I missed it. Sorry.
It's okay. Let me put it back up. All righty. What's a live webinar without these things? So real quick, we're just going to tell you guys about NYOUG, a little bit about Viscosity before we introduce Troy formally. So the New York Oracle User Group, Coleman, I assume you're okay with me introducing y'all today?
Absolutely.
NYOUG was founded in 1984 for the exchange of ideas, assistance, and support among users of Oracle software products. Hopefully that's users like all of you today. This organization consists solely of volunteer users, consultants, and vendors of Oracle-related products and services. There are individual, corporate, and educational or nonprofit membership plans. For more information, make sure you check out the membership page, and that's at nyoug.org. You can follow NYOUG on Twitter, Meetup, LinkedIn, Facebook, and their website. Again, nyoug.org. You want to add anything in there, Coleman?
No, again, we're open for people contributing abstracts. We're always available to present them in our webinars. We've been doing this for the past 3 years and continue to do so. Thank you, Monica.
Yes, of course. And just so you guys know, Troy will be monitoring the questions and chat prompt. You should see that field somewhere, a Q&A box. He'll have that open during his presentation today. So as you come up with questions, please take advantage of this hour with him and ask questions along the way. He'll get to them when he can, or he'll get to them following the webinar. If we need, we can go over in time because again, you guys can access this recording later. All right, so real quick, I'm going to try to make it fast. My name is Monica Lee, Director of Marketing at Viscosity North America, where our mission is to enable business transformation at a time when companies must change to survive. We are a full Oracle stack consulting firm with core expertise in Oracle database, including RAC, Oracle Apex, near zero downtime migrations, performance tuning, high availability, you name it. We've got decades of experience with engineered systems, and we offer project-based services as well as managed services and training. And lately, we've been upgrading most of our clients to 19C. We're pretty good on that these days, though, which is awesome. And we host monthly workshops through orapub.com. So real quick, these are kind of the 3 pillars that we're built upon: data, apps, and cloud. Along the bottom, you'll see things we offer throughout all of these tiers. Some familiar faces, hopefully, to you guys. These are some of my team members. They're always out presenting, just like Troy. Troy is actually one of our great industry friends, also client, also ACE friend. So super happy to always work with Troy in any capacity we can. This page right here just highlights again some other services. As always, I like to point out Oracle License Management. If and when you are ready to purchase, renew, whatever, it's a great time to go through a partner, whether it's Viscosity or not. Do some check and balances, make sure you're only paying for what you need, make sure you're using the most out of your Oracle investment, right? All right, this page here is some of the books we've written. Our consultants, our ACEs, they're always great at keeping up with industry standards, pushing those limits. If you don't have some of these books, I definitely recommend checking them out. Newest one is Oracle on Docker by Oracle ACE now director Sean Scott. And yes, congrats to Sean. So orapub.com, as I mentioned earlier, is now powered by Viscosity. It joined the Viscosity brand a year ago. It was started by Craig Shalahammer, another Oracle ACE director, also good friends with Troy and Coleman. And they all used to be super involved with the IOUG. Hopefully we'll see you guys actually at the now called Blueprint 4D conference. It's going to be here in Dallas, which is actually Viscosity's HQ. This is our backyard, basically, but it is a great conference, and I hope you guys come out to meet us, see some great sessions from folks like Troy, and really just network with a bunch of other Oracle users. So again, this webinar recorded, yes. You'll get a slide deck, yes. All of that's posted on orapub.com, and if you're an NYOUG member, you can also visit their site to find webinars like this and all of the content with it. So thank you so much. I'm gonna actually, Coleman, would you like to introduce Troy today?
Absolutely. Okay. Troy is an Oracle ACE and regular speaker at conferences across the country. Troy is the president of the Suncoast Oracle Users Group in Tampa, Florida, and serves on the Quest IOUG Advisory Board of Directors. Troy started his Oracle journey in 1983 with version 3, and 2023 marks his 40th year focusing on Oracle solutions. Across a long career in the IT space, Troy has held senior roles at American Express, Citibank, IBM, Nielsen Media, and other Fortune 100 firms. As an enterprise architect, Troy is currently Director of Infrastructure Architecture for InComm Payments, a global financial services firm managing annual volumes over 50 billion across 43 countries. Troy, thank you for presenting today. And Monica, thanks for co-hosting these series of webinars with the New York Oracle Users Group.
Thank you, Coleman. I appreciate that. Hello, everybody. I've, as Coleman said, been at this for a little while, so bear with me if I have a senior moment, and hopefully we won't. But today's topic is, to 23C or not to 23C. Are you ready to go to 23C? Is it something you need? Is it something you want to do? So hopefully today we'll answer those questions and a few more. I wanted to start out by saying, are you aware that there's a pending release of Oracle Database 23C? But I'm guessing that you do know since you're joining this session. So but for those of you who aren't familiar, it is the next long-term support release in Oracle's database pipeline. The beta opened this past October or so, giving us an opportunity to test drive some of the upcoming enhancements and new features, see how some of it works, see, what's working, and that sort of thing. I've been through it a bit. Today, I'm going to share some of my favorite new features. There's a ton of them in there, but the favorites that I've pulled out that are targeted for the 23 release, I'll focus primarily on new SQL features and enhancements, but I'll throw in a smattering of other topics just to help you answer this question: is 23C for you, or is it not for you? So if my deck will advance, yep. So, Coleman, thanks for the intro. A little bit about me. What he didn't mention perhaps is that I'm an avid motorsports fan and spend most of my spare time attending motorsports events around the country. I was at the 12 Hours of Sebring this past week, and happy to say that my race team that I'm affiliated with won in their class. So got to celebrate in the winner's circle, hoist the trophy, get sprayed by champagne, all that sort of stuff. So great time always. But if I'm not working on a database somewhere, I'm probably at a racetrack or on the beach. So nonetheless, thanks to the sponsors, New York Oracle Users Group, Coleman, I really appreciate you having me here. Viscosity, Monica, I appreciate it as well. And then the Suncoast Oracle Users Group is my local group as well. So here's Coleman. Coleman mentioned that we go back a ways. This is a Collaborate 2016, I think, with me and Coleman out there. Man, I'm almost wearing that same shirt, it looks like. Who knew, right? But you can make some great friends participating with the IOUG, now Quest, and attending our events. Here's K-Scope 2017. Monica and I hanging out at the party there for K-Scope, and on the right you see Charles and myself, and you might recognize a couple of other ACE directors, Craig Schallhammer on the right and Jim Saprinsky there in the middle. So
We're all working very hard in these pictures.
Just going strong, right? This was San Antonio, so we had to fit in the part with cigars all around, right? So great partners in Viscosity. They've taken care of me for a long time, and I think it's been a path that's gone both directions. So definitely, if you need some extra expertise, don't hesitate to reach out to them. They do a great job. So myself, I've been running the Suncoast Oracle Users Group for a little over 20 years now in the Tampa, Florida, St. Pete area. This was a shot from one of our most recent lunch and learns in January there in the Tampa area. You've got Sean Scott here in the picture as one of Oracle's senior product managers. Charles, of course, with his back to you, paying no attention, but some other of the Viscosity, there's Gary Gordhammer hanging out. So yeah, and I believe it was Craig was presenting, so he's out of the shot. So nonetheless, all great things. Come to soug.org and you'll find all of the slide decks and such that I've presented over time in all the sessions. We've been doing sessions now for, like I say, over 20 years. Before I get very much further, I also want to mention Blueprint 4D coming up. Hilton Antoli in Dallas, Texas. Here's the registration link to go see what's out there. It'll give you a letter that you can use on your boss on how to get him to send you there. But I'll be there. Who all else is joining me? There'll be over 65 database and technology sessions, plus PeopleSoft, JD Edwards, etc. As Monica said, it's near Viscosity's HQ, so it'll be an opportunity to meet most of the team there as well. different tracks that will be in there. We'll have sessions in each of these focus areas. Other hot topics. Down in the corner, I've got a picture of Willie Hardy. This is the longtime Senior VP of Oracle Database Product Management. He'll be a keynote speaker, great friend to the Oracle Users Group community. Willie's going to fill us in on the latest news from Oracle Database Product Development Team and what's going on in this space. He'll have a lot of great commentary on 23C as well and how it's progressing. So, but enough of the Users Group commercial. Let's get on to why you're all here. To 23C or not to 23C. So we want to answer some questions today. What is it? How do I get it? What's in it for me? And then finally, of course, do I want it? Of course, this being a unreleased product and forward-looking, we have to have Oracle's standard safe harbor statement. You can read the details here, but it basically says that any or all of the things we talk about here may or may not make it into the final release. And what does make it into the release might operate differently from how I describe it today. So basically everything I say might turn out to be wrong, but you can't sue them over it anyway. Or me either, for that matter. So I don't expect everything to be wrong, but you never know, right? So safe harbor definitely applies to the conversation for today. So what's 23C? It's the next long-term support release. Oracle started their current practice of saying, I'm going to have innovation releases and long-term releases. They started a few years ago. The primary purpose was to give guidance to their customers on which releases are basically experimental, short-lived releases versus, which ones you want to put your production on for a long-term support. The innovation releases, they try out all kinds of new stuff, new cutting-edge items, but then they don't go to extended support. As you can see from this chart, the current 21C that's out is an innovation release. So it comes off of support, sometime next year, perhaps mid of next year, and there is no extended support. Whereas 23C went beta in about October of last year. They're saying, any day now we'll pull the beta to a close and drop GA for the long-term release. And they've already committed to extended support dates, taking us out through 2031. So that's quite a ways out. Always, of course, refer to this Moss note and you can see what the latest guidance is. Oracle has been known in the past to adjust those dates, usually out. They don't really pull them in because people will have, made plans and they've made commitments. So, but sometimes they'll give you a little more time. That happened last, I guess, with 11.2. So looking at the poll over here, that's kind of cool. I see 92% of the folks are on 19C. That's awesome. I've got 2% have 23C. Great. A couple of folks doing 21C. I hope that's not for your production. And only a couple are still back on 12. Nobody's on 11. That's awesome to see. It's been really good on the latest releases from Oracle about getting content that works, things that folks can go to and depend on it a lot more so than in some of the older releases. Everyone would wait until it was at least 1 or 2 releases back before going to it because they were generally a little shaky. So they've tightened up their game. They've been doing a lot better regression, and we have a lot better day one code. So I'm seeing a lot more people jumping on in the early days. So take all these dates with a grain of salt. They're definitely fluid, but the beta is out there now. So if you're interested, you can still get into the beta. I've got you a QR code down here or a URL that you can fill out the application This is called App Simple, is what they're terming this particular release. It's all about making it easier for developers to get their apps running against the 23C database. So scan the QR code down there, apply for the beta, a little bit of paperwork shuffling later to make the lawyers happy, and you'll be able to download the latest build. Note it's a very much moving target, so they're putting in new posts all the time, so you'll want to check pretty regularly for new drops. You can see that it's their tagline. You'll start seeing that on everything App Simple. And as I said, designed to make it easier for database developers to get applications out with all the modern bells and whistles without having to do a lot of energy. We put the poll out on what version you're on. How do I get to 23C? You know, fair warning, it's never quite as easy as it first sounds. You can only get to 23C if you're on 19C or 21C. So if you're not, you must upgrade. So let me see if I can share this poll results. So yeah, the poll says pretty much everybody but one person in the audience has a direct path to it. So that's really great. If you have other friends though that aren't, if they're down on these 11G, 12, and that's 12.1, 12.2, or 18, they're going to have to upgrade to 19 or 21 before making the jump to 23C. I would probably recommend doing 19 just because that is a long-term support release. So it's got a little more data out there in the Oracle support site if you run into anything with your upgrade. From there, you can then go directly to 23C. So when in doubt, always go with the long-term support releases, right? So regardless of what release you're on, I would also recommend going and taking a look at Mike Dietrich's blog. He can help you out with any of your upgrade items. They have new auto upgrade available for the latest release. Just came out this month. Takes a lot of the pain and agony out of getting the upgrades done. Note his URL here has DE in it. He is in Germany, so if you're direct messaging him, bear in mind the time change, and also get your DE on the end of his URL, and you'll be able to get to him. Right? So that gets us what 23C is. We've covered the fact that it's the next long-term support release and what that means. We've covered how to get on the beta program and the upgrade path to do it. So now you know how to get it. Now for the juicy part. Let's see what's in it for me. What have they done that is gonna make it worth my time and energy to upgrade to this next release? So I'm going to start off. There are a ton of SQL enhancements coming. Some of these we've been waiting for a long time. Here are some of my favorites. I think we'll have the quickest uptake, as most everything on this list is dead simple. They've finally taken care of some things that we've been asking for a long time. I'll mention a few more later if time allows, but those will be a bit more involved, so won't be able to go into near as much detail in this forum. But out of the gate, Boolean data types, select without from, if exists or if not exists on DDLs, column aliases and group by. This is one of the biggest time savers. We'll go through each of these in a little more detail, but each one of these are great additions to the SQL language. So I'll start off with the Boolean data types. Boolean data types are something we faked for years with various data types, numbers, cars, varchar2, Mostly we've used like ones and zeros, T's and F's, Y's and N's, yes, no, true, false, all of these text strings and such to sort of indicate a Boolean value in our tables. Of course, the downside was that then we had to code all of the logic around it, such as, if column equals 1, then do whatever, if column equals T, then, do whatever. But if we did the character data types, it was even worse. We had to worry about uppercase, lowercase, make sure your if statement, and all of a sudden you're starting to get really complex if statements to decide, is this a true or is this a false? And if somebody accidentally used the wrong nomenclature, the logic wouldn't work. So now we have a Boolean data type that's native. It does all the implicit data conversions for most of all the traditional options that we come to know as true and false. It also has the native true and false. You can see here in my example, there are no quotes around true and false because those are actually native values. It's very similar to numbers. Numbers 1 and 0, T and F. We can do all of these. And so I just created a table, did the inserts in. If all goes according to plan, when I say select from Troy where active, so it's Boolean, so you don't have to say where active equals something. You can just say where it's active, and it'll only print the lines that are true. And so if we look back, this is a true, so T is a true, 1's a true, true's a true. These are just a few examples. A whole bunch more will work. Pretty much if you're used to it being a true value, yeses, nos, Y's and N's, all of those sorts of things work at this point. And I'm sure over time they'll put in even more implicit conversions to make your life a little easier and no longer need you to hard code them. Next up, select without from. Old school. There's another one everybody's going to learn, especially when you're working interactively from the SQL command line. How many times over the course of a DBA's career have you typed select such and such from dual? How many SQL statements have we seen fail because we forgot to type from dual? We just said select and we were focused on the value we were trying to get and forgot to put from dual. The statement blows up. You got to go back. You got to add the from dual and then it gets it. Well, not anymore. Today, you with 23C, you can say select a function. You can say select a literal. You can select, a formula, whatever. Anything that can evaluate from dual in the past, it will do it. Much more intuitive when you're reading through code. You don't have to worry about what's this dual table. It's a simple thing, but I love it. I think it's going to be a great time saver. Another one that, man, this thing has happened for a long time. How many times do you do an installation of a new piece of software and it's got to set up its schema and it runs through and you get a lot of error messages because a table already exists and it was wanting to drop the table before creating a new one? Well, it can't drop a non-existent table and it blows an error message. Well, or if you've already done it once and blew up halfway through the install, now then you run it again and it blows up error messages on tables that already exist that it didn't expect. Well, now you've got the if exists and if not exists options that you can add to create table, drop table, many of the DDL statements, right? And so I can say create table, if not exists, Troy, here's what it's going to look like. And it says, yes, I created the table. If I do it again, well, even though that table already exists, it's going to tell you table created because you don't want to throw an error message. And yet you may be looking for table createds in that log file that came from your installation. So had to make a decision there on whether they said it was created or whether they made a different message out of it. I think they've made the right choice so far of make it say what you expected if the statement is succeeded, because the statement did succeed, even though the table already existed. So same for a drop table. If the table exists, then drop it. If it doesn't exist, you won't have an error message. Here we go. I've dropped the table in this one. I run the same command again. It still tells me it dropped the table because the net effect is that table is dropped. So a little bit of chatter on the blogs about this one. Which error message or which messages should you get, even though the clause was executed or not executed. Like I say, I think they've got the right one in place right now, but back to that safe harbor, who knows? It could change, right? So nonetheless, another really big time saver, column aliases in the group bys. How many times have in the past you said, okay, I'm going to say select first, middle, last as name, and then you want to come by and you want to group by name, but you couldn't. You had to say group by first, middle, last, which is bad enough. But then if you're doing something a little more complicated, like extracting a year from an appointment date to say that's an age, well, you had to put that in your having clause as well. Gets really difficult to read, and you lose some of the intent of what was it I was trying to do here. Now they've added column aliases for group bys and havings. We can say as name. Now I can use that. I can say group by name. Makes it a lot easier. Extract as age. Now I can say having age greater than 2020, right? So just a readability improvement that should make our lives a lot easier as we develop more and more complex predicates on these statements. Okay. What am I doing on time here? We're about halfway through, so not too bad. Next up, multi-value insert statements. Instead of having to have a whole stack of insert into Troy values in one row, insert another row, insert another row, insert another row, you can actually group them with parentheses to do multiple inserts in one statement. In this case, I said 1 is hello, 2 is world, 3 is an exclamation point, 3 rows inserted. Select from the table, and indeed you can see all 3 rows got inserted, even though I issued 1 insert statement. So once again, setting up list of values, setting up lookup tables, all of these things will be very helpful. Also, as you move into some of the more modern constructs the developers like, think JSON, XML. This can make it a lot easier to translate a multi-value JSON string into a single insert statement. Your coding just got much simpler because you can just tack it on the end. So, pretty cool. Next, direct joins in an update statement. Oh man, the number of times I've had to do several selects, toss the values into temporary variables just so that I can assemble the values that I want to put in an update statement. Once again, you're doing a bunch of selects. It get anyone reading your code can easily get lost and say, why is he doing all of this? And then it's not until the bottom line where they do the update that they realize, oh, he was getting all these values just to do this one update. Well, now with 23C, you can do the joins in the update statement itself. So here you can see I've got an employee table. They have a relationship on imp ID to their ratings table. And so I can say, adjust his salary to be his salary from the imp table plus his raise from the ratings table. Well, and I obviously got that right. That was supposed to be the reviews table, but nonetheless, join it just like you would join your select statements. And then your where clause to say, oh, if he's a top performer on his rating, then he gets that raise added to his salary. All in one statement, takes care of your joins, takes care of any lookups, and does it all in one step. So a little bit better. Yeah. Oops, jump forward a couple. There we go. Next, this one I'm kind of torn about. I went ahead and put it in, but a little torn about. We've been on a campaign of least privilege for a long time now. So from a security standpoint, you only want to grant them what you want them to have. But at the same time, especially if you look at things like application schemas, you want to be able to grant any of the application execution IDs access to all of the tables in that application schema. Well, as that application schema may grow, new tables are in, etc., you don't want to have to remember to go add that to a role or add it to all of the users. And so now we've got the ability to say, I want to grant on a schema to an individual user or an application user. So in the past, you do grant on this table, that table, this other table, this other table. Now we can say grant select on any table, only on the HR schema to Troy, rather than in some cases in the past giving them the select any table. Fair enough. So that will help. Like I say, I'm a little torn on it as a least privilege. I'm much more about explicitly granting the privileges that I want, but I can see a use case in the application domain here. Next, getting into a little more complicated stuff, courtesy of a talk by Maria Colgan. Here's a JSON relational duality in a nutshell. Basically, what this does is it provides the simplified usability of JSON with the power of a relational database storage. Some things are much easier to be done via JSON, while other things are much easier to be done in SQL against relational tables. Now we can have the best of both worlds without having to do double storage and replication between them. Essentially, depending on how you want to access it, you can access the same information either way. It's actually stored in tables in traditional roles, and yet you can access it as a JSON document, very similar to something you would do in, say, a Mongo or something like that, any of the document databases. So a little more behind the scenes, it works with the performance of the relational database because it's physically setting in the tables. 23C provides a view over the top of it to generate the JSON document. Okay. But with that, they didn't want to leave you at the mercy of coding your own APIs. This is another look at how those REST APIs would work. You have the data in the database. You can do a get doc. It generates it into JSON and shows JSON to the application. The application can work on the JSON and say, okay, change it. And that will do a put doc of JSON and will automatically go back into the tables in the database itself. All the duality views share the same data, so it's an immediate change. You don't have to replicate between two data stores like we've done in the past, getting from our doc store to our relational store and vice versa. Developers no longer have to worry about coding around inconsistencies, taking care of the latencies that replication would entail. So to make this even easier, we've added AutoREST APIs for all of those JSON duality views. So you can look at any of the REST views that you want, and the JSON duality views will come with the full REST API. So it lost one of my pieces here. I can't actually see it. If you access it, there's the problem. It's the wrong table. So Jeff Smith was sharing this with me, and I was editing the page and missed it out. Here's your auto APIs. You can do a get from the collection. You can do a get from the collection on a sub item. Posts, same way. Puts, either an individual item and it'll update the individual or the whole collection. You can delete items, delete collections, all of the standard REST calls. You can see here that it's in your database actions in a SQL window. You can also see what it looks like in the JSON view. So full support, all comes via ORDS, the Oracle REST DB support that's turned on all of your tables. So that should be handy for those that want to work in JSON but need the performance of the relational database. Next up, a few more complicated ones, courtesy of one of Andy Mendelson's talks. Here are a couple of slides on some performance enhancements and some high availability. True Cache looks very much like Redis. I don't know how many of you use Redis, but it provides in-memory, high-performance cache, keeps it consistent with the database. You can do this across multiple databases, across data centers, that sort of thing, and be able to have your application not take as many trips to the database because it can pull data out of the cache. Results in more responsive applications, lower load on the database server, which is what I'm usually concerned about. But other things, new sharding models, supporting different data distributions, different ways to support the sharding keys and make it more aligned with different data sets. Inter-instance resource management. We've used Resource Manager for a while now on a given box. Well, now you can define resource management across multiple databases. So if they're setting on one server, you can say, I want to spread the resources in this way, even between those multiple databases. Another fairly interesting one is automatic transaction abort. So if you think about some cases, you have low priority transactions, maybe somebody's running a report, and that low priority transaction can block a higher priority, maybe one of your OLTP sessions, something like that, a critical update. And so in this case, you can define how you want those collisions to be handled. Abort the lower priority transaction that can perhaps be restarted in favor of the higher priority urgent transaction without having to code that yourself. So interesting one, just played with it a little bit, but has the potential in working with resource management to get us a lot more seamless user experience from a highly interactive data. Another one, dual instance rolling patching. So that was sort of a little bit of a misnomer if you're thinking, well, why would I have dual instances? So really what this is this is bringing rolling patches to standalone databases, just like RAC has had for a long time. This allows you to have a standalone single database and bring up a second instance on the same server. You don't have to have another server to stand it up on like RAC. You can bring it up on the same server. Now you've got the ability to service your application from that new instance while patching the original instance. When you're done with your patching, you can bring that second instance back down and now you've achieved a rolling patch, even though it was a single instance, single server database. SQL, auto SQL repair. This is basically real-time SQL plan management with the database doing it for you. When it notices that there's a SQL error or it's missed its planned execution times, it will start looking for another execution plan and switch to it in real time. Should improve our availability of the apps across the board. Another interesting one, I'm not sure how much uptake there will be on this, but Rack on Kubernetes or Podman, Podman's sort of the single user version, but if you want to run Rack on Kubernetes and use the scaling capability of Kubernetes, you can now do that. And read-only per PDB standbys. Up to now, you had to choose whether you wanted to open your CDB as an active data guard or not, and all of the PDBs would be active if you chose active. Now you get to pick and choose which individual PDBs in one CDB that you want to open as active data guard or leave them as just mounted and not available for read-only. So gives you a little more flexibility as managing them, allows you to control the resources that get hit. Right? So looking at the clock again, I'm getting down to it. Got a whole raft of other features that I wanted to throw in so that you'll know they're there. Maybe go do some research on your own and do some Googling. Couple of interesting ones, 1K passwords. Got to be great for automation. You're bringing certs into play, that sort of stuff. Not sure I'd want to type one of those in, perhaps, but or even cut and paste it for that matter. That's the likelihood of getting that right is pretty slim. But for automation and using application to application authentication, these will help with our security. Error messages, better. They're much better at telling you which object in the command is the one that caused it to fail. You say select value from table and it says table or view does not exist. Well, that's easy if you only had one table. What if you had 30 tables that were in a complex join and maybe subselects and such? Well, now that error message will tell you which table it was that didn't exist. Once again, something we've asked for a long time. Fairly straightforward, but will save a lot of time in the diagnosis phase. What else? In database SQL firewall. This guy, he's much better. Imagine setting a learning mode for the firewall so that it captures a list of all the SQL IDs that are currently running in your database. And then once you've let that run for a while and it's had a sample of all of your SQL IDs, you can then flip it to an active mode and it will block any SQL IDs that are not on your list. This is great for any sort of attacks or even ad hoc users, etc. won't be able to execute a SQL ID. They won't be able to modify an existing SQL because any modification will change the SQL ID. And so built into the database, no extra processes, nothing outside, no separate server, none of that, all built in. Sounds like a great idea from a security perspective to me, but I can see where you'll want to be careful because you can run into challenges, right? Think about things like, month-end processing perhaps, or year-end processing. Well, if you didn't run those during your learning phase, then you come up to the next month in or next year in, it's going to look at those as rogue SQL IDs and block them. Think about new deployments of your app. Anybody else out there doing 2-week release sprints? That means any code you change every 2 weeks, you're going to have to relearn those new SQL IDs in your database firewall. But with those in mind, it still will be a really powerful way to lock down your database and make sure only things that you want running are running. A few of these others in here, fast ingest, they're memory optimizing for write, so they can do a lot of work buffering in memory and yet letting the process that's putting the data in feel like it's got a commit and can move on without having to wait on the acts on those writes. So a lot more audit actions. Once again, a lot of security help. A new dev row, grant it with a package. And so all the same grants that your developers tend to need, which of the $V views do they need, those sorts of things. The ability to create certain types of objects, but not others. So all of the standard developer admin things that you need. So do that all in one. All right. So I want to save a couple of minutes here for some questions. So let me move on. That gets us. So we've covered just a piece of what's in it. But do you want it? I for one can't wait. I think it's going to be a tremendous release. Looking at the beta, it's been pretty rock solid. No craziness in most of these things I've shown. There are a lot of other things out there. Some of those aren't quite as rock solid, but nonetheless. Looking at some of the Q&A, has the requirement for the beta been relaxed from author, etc.? Not sure what you're asking, relaxed from author. So sorry, don't know that one. On the drop table, if exists, is the definition of the table needed, i.e. line, varchar? Yes, because, well, I was trying to demonstrate that for purposes of the slide deck. You can have that definition, but no, you don't need it for the exists. Let's see, I can spin back to that over here. Oops. Let's see, let's get there. Where is it? There. Yeah. No, you can, whoops, I can't click on it or it goes. You can drop any of this. All you really need is Troy. I was trying to demonstrate that it's the same table in each and every case, right? So no, you don't need the extra columns. You happen to know how these SQL enhancements compart to the ANSI standard? Well, Oracle's been a big member of SQL ANSI. They sit on the governing body. So don't know if they've made it into the ANSI standard proposed updates. I would expect that they're on the table. They, of course, haven't been ratified by the commission yet. So definitely not ANSI standard yet, but I would expect them to be coming. Any RMAN data guard improvements or changes? A ton of them. I just didn't have time in this particular session to talk about them. There's a lot of stuff around being able to access logs from different places to improve your RMAN performance. A lot of work in the area of parallelism, the area of being able to access multiple standbys to recreate a recovery, some of those sorts of things. So there's a lot in the RMAN and data guard realm. Do you know if we can directly audit DB links in 23C? Was audit DB links in the mid? They added a whole bunch of audits. I will say they did that. I do not recall off the top of my head if they got database links in there. So let's see, do we have more? Yes, here we go. Is there any change in the licensing model on 23C? Not so far. You can still do user licensing. You can still do proc licensing. So not a difference there. And I think that's all of the questions that I have. 5 minutes left. I sort of dashed through that in a hurry. I want to thank you for your patience and end by saying, here's all my contact info. You can get me on LinkedIn. You can hit me on Twitter. And then there's the direct email is probably the most rapid response you'll get will be to direct email to me. Happy to answer any emails that you want to send in. I appreciate the opportunity to speak for you today. And once again, Coleman, Monica, thanks for putting this together and hosting me on today's session.
Thank you so much, Troy. We appreciate your time as well. And everyone who joined today, thank you so much again for giving us your time. I know we're all exhausted from webinars, Zoom calls, team meetings, whatever it is, you name it. So it really does mean a lot when you guys keep coming back for these webinars. So thank you guys so much. Again, visit NYOUG.org or viscosityna.com for more content like this. You'll get an email from me or one of my colleagues with how to rewatch this. If you're not already a free member, at least at orapub.com, it'll be there. You can join. Free or paid tiers are available to you. Always worth asking your boss if you can get reimbursed for a paid one. You just get access to a little more, but this will definitely be accessible to all free members. So thank you so much. Coleman, thank you also for participating with us today. I know you've had some new work things going on, so I'm glad you were able to hop on. And as always, NYOUG has been a great partner to us with these webinars. So thank you guys so much. Thank you, Troy, and I hope everyone has a great day.
Hope to see everyone in Dallas for Blueprint. It's coming up soon.
Thank
So
you. See you at the next one. Thanks, Troy.
Thanks,
all right.
Thanks, Troy. See you in Dallas.
Bye, everyone.